right. Hey, everybody. This is No Fear, the podcast that explores the boundaries of courage and fear. I am Pete Pepe, one of the co-founders of 3777, and with me today, my partners in crime, the other co-founders of 3777, Mr. Eero Seppänen and Mr. Jeb Corliss. All right, today's going to be an interesting episode. We are going to talk about 3777. We want to talk about the origins of what 3777 is, where it came from, what the philosophy is, what the numbers mean. There's a lot to unpack, and we want to make sure we get to all of it. So I'm going to dive right in, and I'm going to pass this over to Eero. Let's get this started.
Yes, so this is a symbol that we carry literally. You can see it as we have it everywhere. It's even something that I tattooed on my hand that I carry as a permanent reminder of something that we're going to be revealing soon. So the purpose of, or kind of the meaning of our logo, we didn't really talk about it in public, and we haven't done that so often. But I think today we can maybe reveal a little bit what's the symbol behind it. So let's go back in the year 2005 when we first met, and you showed me this scripted logo. I remember looking at it, and I was always curious for life and curious for anything I ask, like, what's the meaning of it?
Yeah. Well, look, it's an interesting story because Eero and I connected. We had a show on CBS that we were working on, and Jeb was on board with us. And I had this idea that I wanted to do something with the three of us, and I wanted it to just be our own personal thing. So there was always this concept that my brother had mentioned to me, my brother Joe, and he'd said to me, hey, there's this really cool thing that comes from the West. And it was something I was like, oh, what is this about? And it was this numbers 3777. And I was like, 3777. Okay, yeah. And what does that mean? He goes, well, what 3777 means is it's actually dimensions. And it turns out that it's the dimensions of a grave. So it's 3 feet by 7 feet by 77 inches. And what would happen in the West, of course, we see the beautiful grave right here with the sky, and we have our logo in there. But it was something in the West that was meant to if there were outlaws that would come into town, and the people that were basically the sheriffs or the people that were vigilantes, they would put these numbers on the places that these people were staying, basically to say, hey, get the fuck out of our town, or
It was
basically,
a warning.
Right, you're going to be in the grave. So, God, it kind of stuck with me. I'm like, wow, that's just, such a cool thing. And then I was like, well, let's kind of make it more cryptic. And so I was sketching, doing some designs, doing some drawings, and this logo turned out. And this is when the three of us were together. And I remember bringing it to you guys, and I was like, hey, I was like, check this out. Like, let's be cool. We're doing the show together, but let's like have our own thing that's, outside of the show. That's something that's personal. That's a little like, undercover. And it's a little bit like Fight Club-esque. It's just for us, and no one else will know what it is. So what do you think of this logo? And I presented it to you, and just, again, I want to hear in your own words when I showed it to you what you thought. Because I know at first you were probably, well, okay, what does this mean? What is this thing? And I think I explained it, but how did you react?
No, I think it was amazing because, I think I was living hardcore still that I think I was still base jumping and the closeness of death and the burial side that made sense to me. Like, oh, I love that it was cryptic. I love that you didn't know it. And I like the deep meaning behind it. But then it's like, okay, so we're going to die. Like, are we morbid persons? Like, are we all about the death? And like, is it about dying or is there anything else? But I kind of started to, we all got together and we decided the Fight Club movie had just come out at that time, and it was all about like underground element and connecting and having kind of like your own secret that you really like brings you together. So I think it kind of started from that. There was the rules of Fight Club that they kind of wanted to define, like don't talk about Fight Club, and so we wanted to somehow, within that spirit of Fight Club, making something unique that would resonate with us and our friends. And I think we succeeded quite well.
Yeah, it was interesting that we embraced it that way. And we had it where there was this thing that was just personal to us or our friends. And we're like, okay, this will be great. We're going to make these shirts. We're going to, Eero and Jeb are starring in the show, and you guys are going to be wearing the shirt. And we're going to have people on TV going, oh, this is such a cool show. They're base jumping. All this. And I'm like, oh, what is that symbol on their shirt? Like, what does that mean? And we're laughing about it, saying, "Whoa, you have to be part of the club to understand what it means." So it was this whole cryptic thing that I think we soon realized that it was actually meant more than what we were thinking it meant. It actually was a philosophy that we all kind of lived by. So we started to understand that 3777 wasn't something more, because again, that's something I know all three of us have encountered when people would originally see this logo back in 2005, 2006. We'd be wearing the shirts. it's a striking logo. So people are like, oh, that's cool. And the first thing they all say is, that's very cool. What does it mean? And then we kind of have to break it down. They're like, what does it symbolize? And then if we look at Jeb's shirt closely, you can see it written out where there's 3, 7, and the 77. But in our quotes unquotes, our superhero cryptic logo, all of the numbers are laid on top of each other. You have the 7 in the center that's overlapped with the 3 to the little 3, which is to the third power. And then we have the little tail, which sometimes we interpret as a flat line, or we would basically was a little bit of an homage to Eero and Jeb and to their sport. Basically, you're stepping off the cliff, you're crossing the line. So it had that symbolism to it. But then we'd explain what the numbers meant, and we'd say, of course, it's 3 by 7 by 77. It's the size of a grave. And sometimes you get the people that kind of understand or a little bit more in tune with us would be like, oh wow, that's really cool. That's very powerful. And then you'd get the other side of the people who'd say, "Oh, you guys are like morbid. You guys are crazy. This is dark." And ooh, that's. And I'd go, "Ooh, hang on a second. You're not fully grasping what it means. There's a lot more of a deeper philosophy, and when you understand what that is, I think it takes it to a different level. And I think it would be fun because the most charismatic person to say this or explain it and who embraced it and has carried it through, I want to have Jeb just explain it because from a philosophical standpoint, he tied it into a lot of other philosophical things that he was experiencing. He was able to kind of like bind it into one thing. So Jeb, it's always nice to hear your side of it.
Well, when I saw it and you told me, the dimensions of a gravesite, it at that point I had seen base jumping as a philosophy more than a sport. Like I never, it was like base jumping is not a sport, and you're like, exactly, it's not. It's a philosophy. It's a way of seeing life. It's an understanding of mortality. And all of a sudden, this symbol really symbolized how I personally felt about base jumping as a philosophical concept, which is, in order to be a base jumper, you have to be very comfortable with mortality. You have to understand that death is an inevitability. And there's this kind of idea that, you cannot allow something that is completely and absolutely inevitable prevent you from living your dreams and doing the things that you love. So this was kind of a symbol to me of this idea that, yes, I know I'm going to die. And that understanding that death is inevitable and that it's coming, that actually makes it kind of forces you to use that little bit of time you get while you exist in the best way possible. So it's this idea that you actually place a symbol of death on your chest to keep you aware that that's the inevitable outcome of everything you do in your life. And it comes into this idea that for me, every now and then something would happen in base jumping that was so horrible and so awful and so just devastating that you would start questioning, is this worth it? Should I keep doing this? Should I keep moving forward in this? And what would happen to me, sometimes, I've had really good friends die and I struggle with, coming back and doing it again. And what would always kind of happen is I'd be like, well, okay, I can quit base jumping. I can quit diving with sharks, riding motorcycles. I can quit doing anything dangerous. And I'm still going to die. Like that's actually not going to stop death from happening. So do these things enrich my life? Do these things make me happy? Do these things have meaning and give my life purpose? And the answer is yes. And it's a fascinating thing when you start to realize that everything you do is going to lead to death at some point. And there's like this great Russian saying that I think really encapsulates this kind of idea, which is don't smoke, don't drink, still die. And I don't drink or smoke, but I understand the concept. I understand don't do the things that bring your life joy and you're still going to die. There's no stopping it. So that's for me, the symbol really was powerful when you started thinking about the philosophical concept of this idea that death is inevitable and that once you accept the inevitability of death, it actually helps you live your life in a more profound and a better way, because now all of a sudden you've released your fear of it and now you can actually go out and live. And it's also funny because this is a philosophical idea that has resonated throughout different cultures. The samurai did this. The Spartans did this. Samurai was fascinating because when a samurai warrior would go into battle, He would go into battle knowing he was going to die, completely accepting death as an inevitable outcome of what he's about to do. And what would happen is that would allow him to shed his fear of death and allow him to then do everything necessary to not actually die. And it's a fascinating thing because it seems morbid or it seems negative, but it's actually not. What it is, it's a person preparing themselves for the worst case scenario and then doing everything in their power to ensure that that's not what actually happens. So, I mean, I don't want to like take over the whole conversation, but but there's this concept. I always look at it like this, and I've always said this about base jumping, which I think this symbolizes quite well. Imagine in 6 months from now, you're going to get into an octagon, okay? And you are going to have a person in there who wants to rip your arm off and beat you to death with it, right? That their goal is to hurt you in a very real, profound way. Now, if you know that, you're going to treat that situation very seriously. In the 6 months leading up to that event, you're going to work out, you're going to eat healthy, you're going to take steroids, you're going to do everything in your power to ensure that when you get in there, you are ready to face that person who wants to beat you to death. Yeah. Now, if you treat that like, oh, I'm going to go in there and have a tea party, how are you going to prepare for that? You're not going to, right? So the idea is, for me, this is about understanding what you're facing, which is the fact that death is coming, right? So you need to make sure that you prepare and try to, in base jumping especially, I see base jumping as a big bad man who wants to rip your arm off and beat you to death with it. And you need to treat base jumping like that. If you treat base jumping like it's just some fun little activity that you're doing with your buddies, and you live in some weird fantasy land that it's all rain, like sunshine and rainbows and unicorns, you're a dead motherfucker. Like, that's just all there is to it. You're going to die. You are a dumbass. Like, if that's what you're thinking, you are going into that octagon thinking you're having a tea party, and you're not, right? So for me, that's kind of a symbolizing of what this is. It's this idea that you're preparing for the inevitable outcome, and you're trying to avoid it at all costs through preparation, right? Understanding, because a lot of people don't like to talk about death. It freaks them out. So, I also think that that's kind of like, for me, part of what 3777 kind of is. It's its acceptance of this inevitability of something that, life is out there to drag you to the ground and beat you to death. That's what it's doing. It's gravity is trying to pull you in to your grave always. And it's a constant struggle against gravity to survive. And I think that that's what, for me, that was where the philosophical kind of concept of the symbol kind of resonated. And that's what I understood it to mean. That's what it meant to me, so that's kind of where I went, and I thought, and we discussed, and we all kind of felt, I thought the same way, is that how you guys kind of saw it?
Yeah, I think it was a very important, it was definitely a reminder. So rather than seeing as something negative, we turn it into something positive. And I think when we first kind of wanted to put this symbol in the words and share it with the world, first it was just for our group, and it was almost a logo that you had to earn the right to wear it. It was not something that you could go buy on the store. So I like that it was so exclusive, and I like that we have our own club, and I like that you had to earn to get your way in it. So I think it was, for me, it worked in two different levels. There was the spiritual level, or the philosophy of it, that helped me to define it. It's always, that's why I have the tattoo. It's a reminder that I'm not here forever. And like you always said, what is it? Our time is limited, but our options are not.
Yeah, it's our time in this world is limited, but what we can do with it is not.
And that was such a good, and that I think defined our brand right in the beginning. And when we signed our manifesto and the philosophy, we did put it on MySpace, and it was almost like we were testing the ice, because in some ways before I met you, and a lot of the base jumping community, we were kind of wondering, are there similar souls as us? mean, it was a certain type of longing, like, are there more people who think about the world the same way as we do? And I think it was almost like a test for us when we decided to post it on MySpace, and with that kind of a quote that had some basically being present here right now. And it was incredible to see that more people resonated. It was just not our little three amigos club, but suddenly there was, and it was not only base jumping, it was like from airsoft to different skateboarding,
and people were tattooing themselves all over the world. People were getting tattoos of the 3777 logo because they resonated with the philosophical concept of what it meant.
We got to give him a shout out. Yeah, he's got that tattoo on his back, I think. 3777. I think that was the first 3777 tattoo. So
yeah,
cheers to you, mate. It's pretty badass that you did that, and you did it pretty early on. I mean, it's pretty. You guys both just remind you.
Barrett, cheers. Like if we give a shout out, let's give it your real name. So, Bert, thank you for supporting, and the other ones.
He has the better memory than me. I can't remember shit. But you guys, talking about memory, you guys just made me remember something. You know, one of the reasons I think originally for me, and this is kind of a cool story, and I can't believe I forgot this story, and I just remembered it. Is that even though we had this show together and it was cool and it was something unique and it was like a spy show, real quickly for the viewers, it was a spy show and it was like an espionage thing. And we had this whole thing with Eero's running around collecting these keys, and he's like an extreme athlete, but he was actually a spy, and so on and so forth. It was phenomenal. We're putting real people, real athletes doing their own stunts. It was one of the first shows actually doing that where the actors were, and of course, doing the most extreme thing, they were base jumping.
Off the stratosphere.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. We were doing stuff that no one was doing.
It was all funny about the stratosphere. I bring it up because, I mean, Jeb and I had jumped it a few years before. I think we went there 2002 or 2003 or something along those. And we smuggled our parachute inside of a stuffed puppy animal. And then years later, we show up with Pete and we meet the managers of the stratosphere. And we showed them the script that in the script, we would smuggle my parachute inside of a stuffed animal. And then all the managers in Stratosphere said, like, really? Like, that happened here a few years ago? And I was like, no, I had no idea. And my nose kept growing like Pinocchio's.
Oh, it was good times. But here it was something interesting. The three of us were united through this show. But, you know, being kind of discovering the sport of base jumping, for me, I felt in a way like, you know, shit, I want to be a part of this, because there was this underground secret movement with base jumping, and you couldn't just hang with base jumpers. Even me hunting you guys down was not easy. It was a lot of work just to get a hold of you to even talk about the show that we ended up doing. So in a way, I was like, you know, shit, like, how do I, like, what, besides a TV show, whatever, they come and go, but what connects me to these guys that makes us have our own club? Because I felt like slightly like left out. And I've been an athlete my whole life. I've been on football teams, baseball teams, basketball teams.
Well, body sculptor, you work out like crazy. Yeah.
All but this was something I'm like, man, these are like guys are becoming my friends. But I'm like, what makes us closer? And so I think in a way, like 3777 was also this way for us to connect, and unknowingly realizing, like, wait a minute, we're actually connected more than I thought we were, because it was like, you know, I had a bass rig from the show, and I remember at some point I was actually talking to you guys. I'm like, hey, maybe I might do a bass jump, and then I'm watching them jump off stuff, and I'm like, maybe I won't. And but it was so cool, and I wanted to be a part of it. So it was neat to see how 3777 united us, but then we started to realize it was much bigger than the three of us, and it turned into something that we all share, which is this understanding that we're mortal. We're not going to live forever. So it was this kind of thing that we all really connected on, where we all strove to fulfill our dreams.
And make moments count.
Yeah.
Like it's since life isn't going to last forever, and once you really come to that understanding that it is limited, all of a sudden those moments you get between now and death become so important. And it almost, like, this understanding makes you want to make those moments count. And I think that that's really important, because a lot of people think that, oh, well, you know, when I die, I'm going to go somewhere else. It's going to go on forever. And that actually makes it so then, well, why do anything? What's the point of anything?
Yeah.
Actually, the thing that gives something value is the fact that it is limited. That actually is what gives that thing value. The reason why this conversation between the three of us matters is because we're only for so long. How many of these conversations can we possibly have till we die? Not many. right? So this means something. Like what we're saying right now means something. The things we're saying to each other means something. The time we get to spend together means something. And the people you love and care about, right? Every time you get to spend time with your mother or father, like there was a comedian, I watched a thing recently, and he said something that was super powerful. He's like, I only see my parents once for Christmas every single year. We live on opposite sides of the country. And they were going to live for maybe 10 more years, 20 more years max. So that means I'm going to get to see them 20 more times before they die. And when you really think about that, that's powerful, because now all of a sudden, every one of those times you get to spend with them really means something, because it's very limited, 20 more times and then they're gone forever. That's a huge deal. So this symbol, understanding that, I think is so super important, because it forces a person to actually really concentrate on that moment they get to live right now and try to make the best of it. And it makes a person a better person, because who wants to just live those last few moments in negative, dark, mean, horrible way? You don't. When you realize it's coming to an end and it's going to be over soon, I want these to be the best moments ever. I want this to matter the most it can possibly matter. I want to really connect with the people in my life. And I think that's special, and that's the philosophy behind what this symbol is supposed to represent. And I think that's why we connected so well on it. And I think, I've always come to this, I've said this throughout time. You don't have to base jump to be a base jumper. It's a philosophical kind of concept. It's a way of thinking. It's an understanding of one's own mortality. And that's what this symbolizes. It's not just for base jumpers. It's for anyone who has a passion for life and understands mortality, and that is the person who actually ends up going out there in the world and really doing something.
Yeah. Well, I think it was amazing too, where, and again, you nailed it right on the head here. But it was cool how it kept kind of metamorphosizing and transitioning, where again, it was this underground thing. It was for us. It was supposed to be special. We didn't want anyone else to know what it meant unless they were in on what, they were down with what we represented. And then
they kind of had to earn it.
Right.
Yeah.
It was cool. And then we realized, wait a minute, it's not just for our base jumping friends and our wingsuiting friends and our extreme friends. It's like, we have artists. It's about people that are putting their life on the line, or at least that philosophical aspect of like, you're going for what you believe in and what you love and what your passions are about. So we started to say, 3777 isn't just the three of us. It's a community. It's a way of life.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted it to get out there and spread to more people, because it's again about, we all do this with each other. It's about having other people that do extraordinary things and are living their passions out, help you become the best version of yourself. And
helping people who have purpose, like finding purpose and finding their reason for existence, and a reason to want to live until the end, and that's, I don't know, I think it's special. I think it's cool.
Yeah. And I think, like you mentioned, that we've tapped into something, ancient philosophies, and that's true. There has been always like just the power of now being here in this process. So it's us. It's acknowledging death. So for me, it's a timer to be here. I think one of our like inspirations, I think we reinvented some of those concepts that have been there before. One of them is like memento mori. It's quite a familiar like Latin word. I think my Latin is a bit rusty, but I think it's a little bit, remember you must die. So already hundreds of years ago, people were having this little amulet that says memento mori as a reminder. For the same reason we are wearing our logos and why we have this tattoo. It is the fact that someday we're going to die, and it's about what we make the best out of it. So I think it's important to explain our listeners what this is, but also if you're not ready to get your own tattoo yet and you want to wear this symbol as a reminder of being here right now, you should go to our website 3777.com, where you can see different apparel that we have, and as a reminder to be here and right now. I think this is quite good. So you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, please. We're also on Instagram. We'll do some kick-ass videos there, and yes, join our tribe, because ultimately we're here to inspire you, but we're also here to be inspired by what you do. So we have we actively engage in the communication on our platforms, and we hope you join it, and we hope that your spirit and your actions and your passions manifest as our brand, and we welcome everyone to our 3777 tribe.